Saw dudes, I like Warlocks a bit more now. Honestly, their multi-subclass synergy is astounding. I wanted to go back and make a Rain of Fire build, but I see that a lot of solar ones have been made already. So I made one with Strand, and it's easier and safer to use than a solar counterpart. If you didn't know, Fusion Rifle and Linear Fusion Rifle kills grant Radiant for 7.5 seconds. It also causes air moves to refill all weapons. This works with weavewalk for easy threadling spawns and damage resistance. The whole arsenal is made of fusion rifles and linear fusion rifles, including Vex Mythoclast, so we will have constant radiant uptime. This build pretty much has it all. Let's get started. Let's go over the game loop first. The whole build is a weapon platform, so you will be killing enemies using your guns to get the radiant buff. Kill enemies using any one of your fusions or linears, and collect orbs for healing and weapon surge buffs. When you need to reload, don't press R like a normie. Instead, hop in the air and use weavewalk for a split second. This will reload all of your weapons, ready threadlings, and provide 90% damage resistance. Use your rift for safety when needed. Rinse and repeat. Needlestorm will be our burst DPS super. It can double as an add clear super in a pinch since it spawns threadlings. This build can go with either healing rift or empowering rift. There's a lot of safety with this build already, so if you want extra damage, empowering rift is great. Arcane Needle can unravel targets for extra AoE damage, but it will mainly be used to fuel weavewalk activations. The grenade choice doesn't matter too much. I'm using grapple for its mobility, but shackle or threadling grenades are both useful. This build uses the Wanderer and weavewalk as its aspects. The Wanderer causes destroyed Tangles to explode in a suspending burst with a 7-meter radius. Tangles track enemies when thrown and aren't affected by gravity. Also, threadling kills now spawn Tangles. Weavewalk is an air move that consumes melee energy over time. While it is active, we generate threadlings every 0.5 seconds, get a massive 90% damage resistance buff, and have effective invisibility from combatants. During Weavewalk, we cannot fire weapons, use abilities, revive, pick up ammo, or orbs of power. Fragments for the Ghost Freak build are Thread of Fury, Generation, and Warding. Fury grants melee energy when dealing damage to enemies with a Tangle. Generation grants grenade ability energy for each damage instance dealt to an enemy. Lastly, Warding grants Woven Mail for 10 seconds upon picking up an Orb of Power. If you don't need the extra safety from Thread of Warding, you can use Thread of Evolution for extra threadling damage. Let's cover the bathrobe gear. First off, the helmet had Harmonic Siphon, Special Ammo Finder, and Font of Wisdom. On the gloves, there was Font of Vigor, Heavy-Handed, and Focusing Strike. For the robe, I equipped melee damage resistance and 2 variable resistance mods. The slippers had recuperation and 2 copies of Strand Weapon Surge. Strand Weapon Surge caters to DPS phases. Lastly, the bond had distribution, time dilation, and rebirth. This build doesn't need super high resilience. You can run with 70 and survive just off of weavewalk and woven mail alone. The next stats to max are recovery, discipline, and strength. Recovery will reduce our rift cooldown and reduce our health regen timer for less downtime. Discipline will supply us with more grenades, and strength will increase the number of times we can use weavewalk. Dump the rest of your points into intellect. Consider subscribing if you found the video helpful at all. It helps me out a lot. This build only has one weapon loadout since the requirements to make it work are a bit strict. Weapon loadout 1 uses Scatter Signal, Vex Mythoclast, and Laser Painter. All of these weapons can activate the radiant buff on kill. Scatter Signal will be your special DPS and utility weapon. There are 2 roles that you can go for, but they will carry the same perks in the first and second columns. In the first column, go for Arrowhead Break for a more vertical recoil pattern. In the second, I suggest using Enhanced Battery for the extra round in the magazine. The first perk combo is the one that most players will gravitate to, and that is Overflow and Controlled Burst. This combination of perks is great for applying DPS to bosses and champions and makes the most of the double strand surge mods. If you want more survivability, swap out Overflow for Slice. Slice causes hits after casting a class ability to sever enemies. This will lower their outgoing damage by 40%, making it nearly impossible for them to kill you. Severing enemies also makes it possible for them to spawn a Tangle on death, so it will feed into the melee energy loop that the build needs. Vex Mythoclast is a stable in Rain of Fire build and will continue to be one because of the slew of buffs it received at the start of the season. It had its damage increase against red bars by 10% and bosses by 25%. Against champions, it got its damage increased by 200%, but it has to be in linear fusion rifle mode. These buffs alone make it an insanely consistent pseudo-auto rifle. As a cherry on top, scoring a kill with the gun grants it stability, more accurate shots, and a 20% damage buff for 5 seconds. This stacks on top of our radiant buff for a 50% total damage increase. If you manage to line up a couple of LFR shots against a stun champion, you won't need to use special or heavy ammo. Laser Painter is the final weapon in our arsenal. It benefits from our double strand surge mods, and like our other weapons, activates Radiant on kill. Because Rain of Fire instantly reloads all of our weapons on weavewalk usage, we don't need to use an auto-loading holster perk or reload perks for that matter. The role I suggest using is Arrowhead Break, Ionized Battery, No Distractions, and Vorpal Weapon. Make sure you use a boss spec mod as well. This build is insanely fun, and I actually like it more than the solar variant. I found the restoration loop on solar builds to be tedious and annoying if messed up. With the Strand version, there's a ton of safety and flexibility. It doesn't have the same healing potential up front, but with so many damage resistant sources, it doesn't need it. Let me know what you think, and as always, thank you for watching, and happy farming.